Because that inclusion happens by design or doesn't happen at all. We have also seen that the dominant narrative of design and design thinking is often rooted in systems that are a representation of oppression and exclusion. So, how can we untangle these forms of exclusion and redesign a more equitable world, grounded in values of inclusion, trust, liberation, and healing? That's what we're going to research today. I hope we'll find the answer, but within an hour. That's a very steep question, of course. Last week, we explored how we can redesign our mindsets to be more inclusive and equitable. And today, we move from the mindset to practical design. We have examples and initiatives that embodies equitable opportunities, and we do that with the guest you already saw at the table. I would like to introduce to you Emilio de Haan, Nanja van Rijzen, Belle Promchanya, and joining us through Zoom is from Germany is Annika Frye. Yeah, warm welcome to you all. And that's the thing, we've got a live audience here as well. We've got actual people with bodies and not only moving heads on the screen. So I'm happy with that, and a very warm welcome to you, of course. Before we dive deeper into the topics that I just mentioned, we would like to hear from you, the people at home, but also hear the people in the studio, because we would like to know from you what equity means to you. And you can participate in the conversation by adding the code, going to menti.com and adding the code 87104258. And if you push in that code on menti.com, you can join in the conversation. If I'm not mistaken, there's a slide with the information as well. So use your device to find menti.com, and there you will be asked for a code, and that code is 87104258. Again, we hope that we can share the information on screen. We've asked the question to the people here participating as well. Emilio, if I can start with you, what does equity mean to you?
Yeah, it was a good question. So equity, I think it means getting people all at the same level or platform, and it's more about also there's a difference for me between equality, which is like treating all people the same, and equity is then, okay, get the people at the same level or platform and focus more on how to get them, give them the same success and stuff like that. So that for me is the difference.
Equity, what's the difference between equity and equality in that sense?
Equality.
Equality.
Equality. Well, equality is like more... for example, if you watch a football game, it's like, okay, let all people watch the same football game. Mm-hmm. And for me, equity is let them watch the game all from the same place, or that you have the same view of the game. So yeah, it focuses more on getting people at the same level.
Do you have to be like-minded people in that case to create equity?
Not necessarily, I think, but...
So seeing it, if we use the soccer example, seeing it from the same place doesn't mean seeing it from the same perspective.
No.
Right.
You still see a different game.
A little bit about your background. Yeah. You are the creative partner at Herc and co-founder of ++1. What is Herc?
Herc is an advertising agency, and named after the legendary DJ Kool Herc. Mm-hmm. We build brands. That's what we say. So yeah, advertising. Mm. Yeah.
And you created a new initiative, and that's ++1.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think when the whole Black Lives Matter movement started, and there were these horrible incidents, and then I realized that an industry which has a loud voice was actually completely silent. Mm-hmm. So me and some other people, we decided, okay, this is so strange, because we have like we tweet about everything, every success, or we post about every new campaign we make, but now there are these big things in the world happening, and now we are silent. So no, it cannot be like this. And then we thought, okay, what can we do? Mm. Because if we looked at our industry, we thought, okay, there are not really a lot of black or underrepresented kids in our industry. So let's build a bridge from our industry towards them. So that's, well, the thinking was like, okay, they all always start -1, let's make it +2, but it sounded a little bit silly, so it became ++1. And yeah, that's what it is, a foundation, or with master classes and stuff like that, that's building a bridge.
Right. We'll talk about ++1 a little bit more later as well, but if you talk about the reaction or the lack of reaction that the Black Lives Matter protest caused, isn't it also in a way a good thing? Because what you saw as well is that organizations or people reacted to the Black Lives Matter movement a lot at that moment, but it was branded opportunistic, because before they didn't mention that at all, or they weren't involved in the movement or in the, in the discussion at all.
Yes and no, because I think at a lot of advertising agencies, they make campaigns for people of color, or they have at least some employees who are well, affected by these issues in their lives. So I think at least some support was good to show.
So what you say, if I understand correctly, if you use some people as a target group, if you aim your messages at certain groups, you should be more involved in their struggles or in the problems as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And ++1, who is that aimed to?
Well, it's aimed, well, it has two sides. It's aimed towards the young people, like on the screen. Like, okay, we have an industry which might be interesting for you. Do you have some kind of raw talent? Join us, and maybe we can get you like a job or internship. And it's focused on the industry as well. Like, okay, open up your eyes. It's what you hear a lot is, well, I can't find them, and I think that's one of the most stupid reasons to not hire or look for minorities or certain minorities. And well, yeah, so we focus on them as well.
Yeah, and we talk about practical examples of designing by inclusion. Why? I mean, we've talked about it a lot, and it's common knowledge almost. But why is it important to have a diverse or inclusive team if you think from an advertising perspective like Herc?
I think, well, we would like to, in advertising, show the real world. So, okay, what's out there, who's out there, who are building or creating certain kind of movements and stuff like that. And so those creators, they should have a place on the table in the industry.
But that's or faster or slower than in real life. It's not really real life, is it?
No, it's never real life, but at least it is what we focus on as a company.
And is it about representation, that if you show the world people should be represented and everybody should be represented? I mean, just to challenge just what you said, isn't representation more important than having it real?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, but for me that is real.
Representation is real, yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, it is about representation, and not only in, for example, in the cast you see in the output or the commercials we make or the films we make, but it's also representation is the people you work with, the people who work in the company, and yeah.
And every intern that you have at Herc is also connected to ++1 in a way.
No.
Okay.
No. We have
my
interns.
Research didn't say the right thing. Damn it.
No. Of course, yeah. Interns are connected to ++1, and we also hired to an art director and a junior strategist who were part of the program. But yeah, that's not connected.
Yeah, it's not always like that.
No.
Right. Thank you for now. We will talk to you a little bit later as well. But at first, I would like to introduce our second guest, and that's Nanja van Rijssen. A warm welcome to you. And you're the co-founder of Women Skate the World. What is Women Skate the World?
So Women Skate the World started as a platform with which we wanted to reach more girls to come and join us in skateboarding. And now it grew out to like a full-on charity. And we had 3 different programs in which we use skateboarding to inspire, empower, and engage people. Mostly using skateboarding as a tool to talk about social themes or to work in creative workshops and to talk about the themes that our participants find really important, such as climate change, activism, anything actually.
And are the participants only women?
No, so we started off with girls programs. This is one of our first programs from Amsterdam. And I think a year later we started with programs in Southeast, and we realized, it was mid-COVID, we realized that if we would only do it for girls, we couldn't reach the boys too, to talk about stuff like equity or how to like treat each other based on gender in a skate park, which is like a big theme in everything we do, because skate parks are very male-dominated environments. So we thought, why not do mixed groups and also open up the possibility for girls' days or girls' groups for the girls who want to or who need to. And we also started a new project called New Wave, and this is where we organize meetups for queer people and women. And sometimes, occasionally, in an outdoor park, there will be a straight guy joining us, but it's mostly queers and girls only in our indoor.
What do you do together with the groups that you organize workshops for?
Anything.
So, for example, the women and the queer groups, queer people. What is the actual workshop that you give?
So with New Wave, it's mostly just we call it a meetup, a session where we will skate together. But also within the organization, we try to like hand over the power or the different things to the people who are a member of the community, as you can say. So, for example, all of our posters are getting designed by people from the community. We want to start a book club, what I was just talking about, and we can do that in collaboration with someone from the community who wants to start a book club. This is with the kids, and we designed skate parks together, and we handed that in like a little zine to the municipality of Amsterdam to show them what the kids were looking for in a skate park.
Right. And if you describe a skate park as not always a safe place, why is that the case? So
skateboarding originally is a very white male-dominated sport. Even though there have always been other people in the skate park, they never really got the space. And this is also a metaphor for daily life, I guess. But it's all about taking up space in a skate park. So you need to know when you're going, you need to go when to wait for someone else. But for some reason, this certain dominating group is always taking up more space or going in front of you without even knowing or being aware that they are, which makes it very unwelcoming if you're not part of this dominant group. And in this case, that's queer people and women.
And how do you mediate in that, in that situation? What do you do? How do you change the balance?
Yeah, so there's different things, I think, how we approach it. With the kids, we actually like talk about it a lot and ask like if guys, like young guys of 12 years old will make trouble when we're in a skate park, we would actually like talk back and have the discussion about it so that the kids would learn. With the older group, I think most of it is about showing up and being there always to create this community together. And by all being there together, we take over the skate park. So if it's a small skate park, you'll just see our group. And the guys will be in a minority. Yeah.
You mentioned equity already. What does equity mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a discussion that we have a lot about equity and equality is that we think that sometimes to reach equality, to reach a world where everyone can get the same chances, you need to exclude certain groups and to give priority to other groups. So through exclusion, we'll work towards inclusion and like more equity and getting people more chances.
Through exclusion, we work towards inclusion. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Let's see in English. I think because we don't allow any straight cis guys at our indoor sessions, we have this discussion a lot with people because we're excluding them from our events. But we're doing that in order to prioritize the queer people and the women who are usually not giving the same chances and same space in these same environments. So through excluding these guys, we are working towards a world where these people feel safe, where they can form their own community, and from there on go to a skate park with their friends, with their community. And in the end, in the ideal situation, you would have a skate park where anyone feels welcome and where it's like a more diverse group of people.
Emilio, excluding people to promote or organize more inclusion, what is your vision on that?
Yeah, I was wondering how it would work. So I think it's an interesting way of looking at it. I have some questions. It's more like, okay,
that's why we're here.
I was wondering, do you also go to Skatepark Noord, for example, which is like this big community? Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the indoor one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it.
What do you wonder when if they go into Skatepark Noord? What do you expect to happen or not to happen? Or
now I was wondering if they because it's also quite an individual sport. You go there with your group, you do your thing, but do you interact after the skating? For me, that's more like the important thing. You can skate all together in the park, and I hope without incidents. But after that, then the important thing happens, the socializing.
So what I think that really helps is that in Noord specifically, the Horeca, the restaurant and the bar is open to anyone. And the skate park is exclusively for queer and girls skaters. So I guess for like the interaction in this certain moment, we'll be with more people. But for like the indoor skate parks where we are with our group in an environment where there are more skaters, of course. Yeah. And in Noord especially, there have been girls' nights before, not hosted by us, where maybe at the end of the evening, guys will come in and come skate, and even though you understand or you claim to understand or you are aware of your position, they would still make other people feel unsafe. And that's why with our indoor sessions we go for exclusion.
Yeah. But I think you've got a point. I understand the exclusion and causing inclusion, but by separating people, it's what Emilio says. How do you promote interaction as well? Because real equity or equality, can exist by interacting and respecting each other. Are there steps that you take in that regard as well? What do you do?
I think you could see this as like an in-between step, something that's needed now, but in a later moment, ideally it wasn't. With our like whole program, with our Instagram, with our voices, if we get somewhere within the skateboarding world, we are like actively explaining what we're doing, why we're doing it, talking with the guys, having discussions about it. And in like the outdoor sessions, we'll interact with people around us, of course. And also people will see each other and not be like afraid of each other, or like they will get to know the environment before coming there on their own. And what you see already is that a lot of people from our group are now moving into skate parks on their own with like other friends. And I think by promoting that and making sure that there's like a group chat where people can plan skate dates, I think we're boosting the fact that people can go out on their own without just this solely like safe space built by us. And in the end, we want to do like panel talks and stuff, but COVID happened before we could actually start with that. And the panel talks would really be focused on how to change the skateboarding world from within and how to engage in conversation with all these like key players in the skateboarding industry in what they think and what we think and how we would solve stuff together.
So it's already very successful.
Yeah. It's getting huge without us like knowing. We didn't think it would get that big, but super cool.
Can you tell us how big it is? We've got the numbers. We need the numbers.
So the New Wave sessions originally started in September last year in Rotterdam, and then in Amsterdam too, but like really tiny because we were on a COVID restriction. And then we restarted it in June. And I think right now we have 100 recurring visitors in a group chat who are like planning skate events with each other. The Amsterdam events, I think they get around 50 visitors continuously, and Rotterdam as well. But it's also due to the max capacity of a skate park. Yeah. So we can count how many people bought a ticket to go skate, but there's also people who just come to hang on the terrace. And we don't count them. Right. But yeah, I think we have like a big community with a lot of people who come back. So.
Any more questions from you, Emilio?
No. I think we kind of do the same, I was thinking, because we also focus on, like we say on the side as well, like black and underrepresented kids. And with underrepresented, I think we say kids of color, actually. So we also took, we had to make a decision. Okay, we have to focus on a certain kind of groups and then open up more. Yeah. So I think we kind of do the same. So I totally support this way of thinking.
Causing inclusion by excluding people. Is it feasible to think that you would open up your target audience or your target group to other people's, not only underrepresented kids of color, but also queer people? Or
yeah, of course, that's what needed. So, but I think we have to start with what we know or the people who we reach. And the funny thing is, we had like with the first group, we had like this. They could fill in all kinds of forms. Okay, what could we do better? And then the funny thing is, they said it was not diverse enough. So they wanted more like also kids from all kinds of backgrounds and genders and stuff like that. And
that sounds very hopeful in that sense, because it's something that people need or people are looking for. Yeah, and it's not only looking for the group that you belong to and not looking further beyond that. Yeah. So it could be expanded. Yeah. Thank you so much. We've got a third guest at the table, and we've got a guest in the Zoom chat as well, who I'd like to introduce to you. So here at the table is Bella Promchanya, and you're a designer and co-founder of Nonnative Native. What is Nonnative Native?
So Nonnative Native is a cultural platform. Now we are based in Rotterdam. That is, we have been focusing on the work of Asian artists who are based in the Netherlands and in Europe. So it started off as a design research platform where we try to investigate into the themes of Asia, like how it is being perceived or being like projected in this part of the world, in design or in art. And then we also try to get to know like the people in the landscapes who are also part of the cultural landscape of the Netherlands, with the Asian backgrounds, the first generation or second generation, or those like me who came to the Netherlands to study. And then we create like public events to have discussions around the works of the different people. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the representation of people with an Asian background within the cultural landscape of Holland?
It's really complex. I think the word Asia is also problematic to trying to identify it. Like sometimes people ask, like, do you want to, like, what is Asia to you? How do you define it? Where is it end? Does it end in China and then ends in India? Things like that. And then for us, it's not our role or not of our interest to identify what Asia is, but more like for those who fall into the umbrella or being labeled as an Asian person when they stepped out of the regions. And there's certain, of course, since the region is really complex, there are a lot of differences. You can't see it as like one chunk of culture.
Asia is not a country in that sense.
Asia is not a country. China, Asia is not China or only India. I'm from Thailand originally, so we would like to present that complexities of Asia, the differences, and also the connection that lies underneath the differences.
Well, what is the connection that lies underneath?
Sometimes it's, I think maybe in certain values, in certain parts of the world we hold different values or cultures, or like sometimes it's something that you can't really identify with, but then you feel like you kind of found your tribe when you meet someone, like for example, if I'm from Thailand and then I meet someone from Korea in Thailand, I don't feel the connection too much because it's like, okay, I'm Thailand and then Korea is like another world. But when I'm here and then I meet someone from Korea, then we started to have a little conversations on things that we found of interest together. Like we watched the same TV series, or we had the same kind of food, like really basic kind of stuff. Or we understand like the situation of the political things in each other's countries. So there, like the connection that is created once you stepped out of your land, I would say. So the connection of being an outsider, maybe that's also why the name non-native native is coming about. Yeah.
Yeah. So being an outsider and that perspective from outside to Dutch society, that's very important for non-native native.
Yeah.
And what is that perspective on Dutch society? What is society like?
I think it's different depending on the individuals, but then what we would like to how do you call, like to propose being an outsider from within. That's one of the words that we use, is to be someone who also understand what's happening inside. So what's happening inside Europe, or what's happening inside the cultural landscape of the Netherlands. But at the same time, you are not fully part of it. I would not say I'm looking at from the perspective of a Dutch person. I don't understand what's happening, but I also understand it from the perspective of people who look from far. So you see certain things that the people who is inside might not see, the certain gap or certain things that can be filled in, or the connections that can be made, like from here to where I came from, and things like that.
One of the goals that Non-Native Native has is reclaiming the unclaimed. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the goal, but it's more like our fun motto to say, like, yeah, we are practicing the art of reclaiming the unclaimed, in a sense that in the perspective of being an outsider, or being a minority, sometimes it's also put yourself, it happens to me, like personally, when I move here, and then I feel like, yeah, I'm not sure if I belong here, how long I should stay here, how far I can say, or on certain thing, where is the space that I can do things that is valuable to me, but maybe not of interest of people here. So those kind of questions can put you in a position of being, how do you call, not like a victim, but more like powerless, I would say. So reclaiming is more like, okay, you understand that you are actually the one who takes this position. You are the one who say, I choose to be here as an outsider who would like to contribute something to here. So reclaiming that power back in that sense.
Yeah.
That's what that statement means for me. Yeah.
And taking position and feeling comfortable in that position as well.
Yeah.
When talking about tools and opportunities for a more equitable world, how does this lens influence your perspective, the lens of the outsider?
The tools and opportunities, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's one of the tools that we always seize the opportunities in bringing people together and have a conversations, and in equity, I always think of it like to be fair. I think that's like the terms that I would use of, yeah, the equity, or what Non-Native Native tries to do is to maybe trying to create a space for not like physical space for people to be represented, but also like mental space in an equal way, that people can be who they can be. They can work on things that they found important, and feel comfortable in doing that, and not feeling like you are taking up a space, but it's like, hey, this space is for everyone, and this is also for you or for us.
But what practical tools are there in order to claim that space? Because I can imagine if you're quite hesitant to do that, you need some kind of encouragement of some kind of tools in order to take that space.
The tool that we use a lot is actually organizing public events where people can come together and have conversation. And I feel like bringing people together to have conversations are part of the tools that we use to not only for us to get to know each other as a community, but also to create certain weight or visibilities that people understand that there are things happening and they can join. So we create a regular kind of different sort of event, like meetups or lecture, performance, and on different themes. And people are invited to join as a participants or as the artist. So yeah, in that sense, we use cultural art design public events as a tool. Yeah.
Thank you for now. We will continue the conversation a bit later, but first I would like to introduce our fourth guest to you, and that of course is Annika Frye. She's a designer, researcher, professor at the Design Academy in Eindhoven. And Annika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And you're in Germany, located in Germany at the moment, if I'm correct.
Yes, I live in Germany here with my family, and yeah, I travel to Eindhoven every 2 weeks or sometimes more frequently, and this week we will go there for the graduation show.
Ah, very good. We have talked about equity at this table as well, and I would like to pose the question to you, and we ask the same question to the people at home too. What does equity mean to you?
Yeah, I had some time to think about it, and I'm sometimes not very happy with the idea of identity politics. So to form a group of people who are like share the same interest and to create an inside that is different from like the outside. I can understand that in the context of inequality, this is quite helpful for the moment, and it's like a makeshift construction. But ideally, equity would mean that we can take into account all the different individual positions, let's say. So if you think about Adorno's idea of the non-identical.
The non-identical, and seeing the non-identical as a strength that you should take in account.
Yes, because Adorno heavily criticized cultural industry for creating, in a way, serial productions of the same cultural strategies. And obviously, in cultural industries, this is still the case. And these like similar methods and this, let's say, canon of methods also in design education is in a way repetitive and everywhere the same, kind of. And this is a power structure that also creates problems within teaching and so on. So if there would be more space to represent the differences and to react to them, in particular in education and design, I think this would lead to more equity.
Right, and that's what we heard from Bell as well. You have to take space, and even if you're not represented, take space in order to be represented. And in a way, everybody at this table does the same thing, has the same goal. We will talk about education and representation education a little bit later. But first, I would like to know the way the economical system is organized at the moment doesn't give any room to create systems or products for individuals, because mass production brings in the money. So do we need to change the whole system before we can change our perspectives, or does it work the other way around?
So yes and no. So on the one hand, I have been researching a lot about improvisation and how people, in particular designers in this case, appropriate things that have been mass produced. And we can even design things in an open way so everyone can change them. But I would not wait for the system to change. So I would start right away. So basically what you have in your home, you can already adapt to your needs, and depending on what you want to change, obviously. But most of everything that we consume, all the pictures, all all the products, all the food and everything is a result in one way or another of mass production. And depending on your abilities, what you can do as an individual, you can cook and change things, but you can also change your clothes by making them fit and so on. So these are very simple ways to oppose mass production and the idea of making everything the same.
That's about individual expression. If you adapt mass products that have been produced by mass production, you can adapt them to your own taste in order to be more individual. But it doesn't change the system yet. And if we can switch to the non-school, it's another initiative of yours. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that changes maybe the educational system?
So the present educational system, as I have experienced it, is based on very clear power structures, and they are based on also the idea of representation and non-openness. So often you don't know when decisions are taken or when things are happening inside a school, you don't know why as a member of it. Maybe because you don't speak the same language as the people who have spent probably more time in the institution. There is in Germany something called Habitus, which is very important when you do a PhD at a faculty in Germany, that identify yourself as part of a group of others, who are like professors, people who want to decide what is scientific and not, and so on. And the interesting thing about design education is that actually design education is very different from other ways of educating people because it's project-based. And we don't need, for instance, in PhD programs that are really new, don't need to reenact what is happening in other areas, like in the humanities. So we don't need to have the same habitus. So we can hack this by just applying the normal design method to the PhD programs, for instance.
But how does that work in real life? How can you create a multitude of voices, a multitude of perspectives, and how does that translate into that educational system? Because what was Emilio said here as well, one of the reasons it doesn't happen automatically is that you can't find people, they're not already there, they don't have the same or the right background. How do you solve those problems?
Yes, by giving others the time to say what they want, basically. So to just don't try to build these borders. Don't be a gatekeeper. So I very quickly after my PhD became a professor, and I started to really open the space for the students in my colloquium, and to not be too much into this habitus language and so on. To make it more simple. So one tool is to speak English, for instance. My English is not that good, and it resulted in a more simple way of explaining things, which was really helpful for everyone because the students could then better understand me when I switched to English.
I think your English is perfectly fine, and I understand it. So that's really, I'm really happy with that. But what you say is that you have, in a sense, you shouldn't be the gatekeeper, but of course you are a gatekeeper because you have to do some kind of selecting. But within the borders or within the realm of the educational system, you can break down barriers, and you can, well, is simplify the right word? Because you have to study, but simplifying is maybe not the right description of it, is it?
Yeah, in a way simplifying, but sometimes it's also more complicated. Because in academia, one thing is when you are in a group of people who are deciding about something, you don't have much time. So when you discuss about which project should do this or that, you are with other professors, and everything has to go very fast. And this is something I find often very difficult, because this leads to unfair situations. Often people don't know the background of things. You have to explain, yeah, and it takes time. Inclusivity is complex, yeah. There are a lot of stories behind every decision, and so I spent a lot of time before COVID, but also with COVID in my studio or here in my home, to discuss with students, why is it like this? So what has happened to the project? What are your whereabouts? Why? Yeah. So,
but if you spend a lot of time doing that, you don't have time for the actual design process, which doesn't bring for the best results, or does it?
I haven't understood this. Can you say that again?
Time is a problem. Time is it's a challenging factor. So if you take time to talk about background, to talk about process, to talk about why things are like they are, doesn't that stand in the way of the design process that needs time as well?
No, I think it's part of it, because often when you are in a more relaxed mode, because a professor has understood what's going on, you get more easy to the. So if a student doesn't want to do this and that, it doesn't make sense for me to tell them, yeah, I would like you to do this, unless you don't like it. I rather try to find out why not, and often it makes sense.
Right.
Because often the students have gone into their subject way deeper than I, because I'm just giving them sort of framework and methodology, or sometimes my job is only to talk to them once a week, so they don't sit there alone doing it. Yeah.
Right. We hear a child in the background. Sorry?
They don't really need me so much, I think.
Okay. Well, okay.
For their creativity, they are mostly, they are very good most of the time. So
they can depend on themselves. Thank you for now. I'm just checking with the technique as well. Have we got some reactions from menti.com, because I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't seen it on my iPad either. People are looking for it right now. Yeah, here are the reactions to what comes to mind when you hear the word equity. Level playing field, fair treatment, positive discrimination, justice, making space, suiting. I wonder what suiting is. Different needs, accessibility, fair pay, and fairness. Emilio, if you see those words, is there anything that you would like to react on? Is there anything that you agree with or disagree with?
I was also curious about suiting, but I think fair treatment intrigues me.
Why?
Well, in the end, for me, it is fair treatment. Yeah, it is about fair treatment as well, but it's also it focuses also on people's personal needs and how can you make persons better if they are at its. First, you have to get them to some kind of level, the same platform, and then you have to focus on their own needs to make them become better. So fair treatment it's a yes and a no, I think. Yeah.
It's yes and no, right.
Yeah.
Belle, is there anything that triggers your thoughts?
Yes, I'm wondering about the positive discrimination.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Maybe that would have happened here in the 90s and 80s as well. Is that when you give, for example, what Nenya does, so you make room for people that have been underrepresented, and that's not discrimination in a negative sense, but by giving them some time ahead, you have some positive discrimination. So you give them actually more chances to be part of a certain system.
Yeah, to recognize the differences and then give this, even though it's a discrimination in a sense, but it's from a good intention. That's what you.
Yeah, to recognize that there's no level playing field. In order to correct that, you have what you call positive discrimination. So if you're looking for a job, you can say we specifically look for female people in order to apply for the job.
Okay.
Is that something that you like, or is it something that you dislike? What do you think of it?
For me, just discrimination is have such a negative connotation to it. And like for me, what you are saying, what positive discrimination means, doesn't really go with the terms to me. It's more like giving a space to people who actually you recognize that they need the space and you give space to them.
Yeah.
And for me, me personally, that doesn't really count as discrimination. I think to me, like discrimination is more like rejecting. The minorities or rejecting people.
But it's something that we mentioned here as well, excluding people to create more inclusion. I think it's parallel. But I understand the juxtaposition or the contradiction between positive and discrimination, something negative and something positive as well, right? Nanya, we have a short clip of Women Skate the World. Shall we have a look at it and then react to what we just saw? Let's have a look at the clip.
What does it mean to me? I guess it means friends, community.
Vrijheid.
Vrijheid. Kunnen zijn wie we willen zijn.
Veiligheid.
Het voelt voor mij een beetje als een veilige plek om te skaten. Ik voel me gewoon heel erg op mijn plek hier. Gewoon een soort van thuis, buiten je eigen thuis. Waar ik gewoon mezelf kan zijn. Waar ik niet het gevoel heb dat ik in de weg loop.
Je voelt je niet gejudged. Je kan echt jezelf zijn.
Het is gewoon leuk om allemaal nieuwe mensen te zien die ook skateboarden leuk vinden.
Elke keer dat ik hier kom, merk ik dat ik meteen word opgevangen en dat iedereen je meteen herkent. En dat is gewoon een heel erg fijn gevoel dat je meteen aansluiting vindt.
Ook wel een stukje community, denk ik. Skate community.
Waarbij ik niet de hele tijd heel bang ben dat ik niet goed genoeg ben.
Zonder dat er druk op ons ligt. En zonder dat we skaten om het goed te doen, maar gewoon om lol te hebben.
Het voelt een beetje als de ultieme vorm van gelijkheid.
My safe place, I guess.
That's beautiful. My safe place, I guess. What people mentioned a lot was safety, a safe environment, and also a sense of community. How do you create a sense of community with people who don't know each other?
So I think the first thing we always do and that we stress when we have new volunteers, for example, is to actually go out and meet the people, talk with them, welcome them personally, remember their names. And there's like, we take attributes, we take like LGBTQ flags, or we took like little buttons with all these different pronouns, and people would arrive and at the entrance they would find a pronoun button, stick it up, and everyone would know whether to say she or they or them, stuff like that, like the tiny things. I think that makes for like a first impression of an environment where you can be yourself and thus be safe. We try to engage with our community and to give them ownership of the growth of the community. Even though it's like a young project, this is why I say try, but it's what we mean to do. So, for example, a couple of people that you saw in the clip are now starting their own activities in Eindhoven soon. And another project has, like the outdoor sessions have gone to Rotterdam again. And we're doing events in Breda and Nijmegen as well, but it's all set up by people who come from this community, and they can always ask us, like, hey, what can I do? Yeah. And we're happy to give them the power to do that. It's not about us as like taking charge, it's about us creating an environment and then giving them the tools to build that community.
Annika, I'm very curious of your reaction to the initiative that we just showed. What's your reaction to it? Is it something positive, something that should be encouraged?
I think yes, because this creation of a safe space to be creative or to be sportive is kind of essential, and as long as not everywhere is a safe space, I think it's essential to do that. So in the university we also have that. So when you hire people for jobs, and in the end often you have the problem or the question that the publication list of a female applicant is not that long. and there are more male people who probably have more exhibitions on their list or something like that. So it makes sense to not only look at the amount of exhibitions or super highly rated places, but also just at the person as an individual, and that we have to get rid of some of the criteria.
But how does that compare to what you just mentioned, that you're very aware of the dangers of the identity politics? Isn't this the ultimate example of identity politics, only having the same people in the same space, sharing the same values? That's creating your own bubble. And, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate, of course, but what is your position to that?
So just because you're female, it's not that you have one bubble. So
no, but if we saw in the clip, it's like the LGBTQ community or the queer community that comes to the skate park in order to feel supported. I mean, isn't that creating this new bubble, and isn't that the example of what you call the identity politics?
Yes, but I have no other solution for this in real life. So I would like it to be differently, but I also think that for the moment, as long as skate parks are very sometimes competitive environments, like academia is also a competitive skate park in a way, we have to come up with pragmatic solutions for the moment. But we must always keep in mind that this is not the ideal way.
Yeah, I think that is the quote of the day. Academia is also like a competitive skate park in a way. I will print that on my T-shirt. Emilio, talking about redesigning, you are the co-founder, like we mentioned, of ++1, and one of your taglines is turning the negative into positive. What do you mean by that?
What we mean with that is that there's, I think, still sometimes, well, it is a negative situation we are in, and we want to try, like I said, we want to try to make it a positive situation. So we think the underrepresentation of certain people in our industry is like a bad thing. Let's make it a good thing together.
And how can you make it a good thing?
Well, we have like these different levels. So we have ++1, which is like we work with raw talent, people who don't need an education, but we still want to have them, like, get them real jobs, paid internships, like normal paid internships at real agencies. And we have like this the onboarding program, which is really important to us, because you can open up your company, but if you have like this different backgrounds, sometimes it can become like a problem. So we have like we are creating onboarding programs for the companies who are taking the students into their company, and we have like this workshops which is more focused on CMOs, CEOs of our clients, on client side, also on agency side, how they can build like a more diverse, equal, business themselves.
What do you teach companies that take in the interns with the traditional experience? Because what I understood is that once they're in, it doesn't mean that they're successful. If you have to meet standards that aren't realistic in that sense, or don't apply to you, it could be very conflictuous.
Yeah, and once they're in, doesn't mean that they feel safe.
Exactly.
For example.
So what do you teach companies in order to create that safe space?
Well, in the end, it's about opening up your own world to learn stuff about the people who are coming into the company. So they have like, if they're like Muslim, okay, learn about them. What do they do different than you do in your daily life? Do they have different food or something like that? So, okay, well, once a month, twice a month, I don't know how many times, okay, prepare something different than the food that you are used to eating yourself. And so
Do you say something about work processes as well? That,
yes, of course.
What do you say by that?
There's one example which stick to me, which Angelo Bromet from Prospect 11 told me about. When we started this, he said, okay, if I call you and you don't react, I call you another time. He said, if one of my kids calls you and you don't react, for him it's like, or him or she, it's like, oh, I'm not important. Mm-hmm. If they call back and you don't react, then it's like, oh, see? And then they stop with the program, they stop with what they're doing, or they just disappear. Right. And he said it's not always like that, but a lot of the times it's because of all the things they experience in their life already. That's their reaction. So he said, and a lot of the times, so you have to think about that. So if you see the phone call, react. That's the easiest thing you can do. React.
I think on one hand that's common courtesy and that's important, but again, to play devil's advocate, that's my favorite role today. Yeah. In real life, people don't react immediately.
No, I meant instead of react, I meant call back.
Yeah. But even that doesn't happen if you try to reach people and they're very busy.
Yeah, but but those are the simple things that in the end make them feel safe. Or
yeah, but how do you decide between preferential treatment and helping somebody out? Because if there are many people working in
I think it works both ways. So we give them the same, we also teach them, okay, this is what this means in like business, in the business world, or this is, so yeah, it's teaching them both ways. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and still, I agree with you that we have to learn from each other.
Yeah,
and then you have to educate both.
No, actually, it's really simple because it's all about that, learning from each other. But sometimes it's becoming really difficult.
But then you talk about power structures too. That the company has to understand that they're not on the top of the power
I have
structure.
This Vietnamese girl working at my agency at the moment, and. I saw her wandering around my office a lot of the times, and I was, okay, she's walking, get there, she's walking again, looking inside, but she didn't come in. And so I thought, okay, now I'll go out to her, just invite her in, and the first minutes were like a little bit awkward, but then she started opening up, and then she told me that in Vietnam it was like, yeah, you don't go into the office of the boss. It's like you just don't do it. You don't talk to him. But she had like this thing she wanted to tell me, an ID. So, okay, well, for me it was like, okay, this is really, I learned something again. Yeah. So, yeah, I learn still.
The communication line should be open. And even those subtle signals like somebody hovering around your office sometimes means something as well. And it's not a bad thing to understand that and to incorporate that in your own way of working.
Yeah.
Right. We've come to the end of the program, unfortunately. My final question to you is, if you have to give anybody tools in order to promote equity, and it very basic, very simple. What should that be? Yeah. You looked like you have the answer to that.
Oh. So if you can give someone tools.
Yeah, either companies, the audience, the people here, to be tools to be more inclusive.
Listening.
Listening.
Step one is listening and being open to criticism and being open to someone else's experiences, which are as valid as yours might be. Mm-hmm. And the second one, I think, is to act on it, of course. Mm-hmm. But there's like different ways to act on it. So I'm more in favor like doing stuff together. So you listen to someone and you respect what they think, and you will find a way to do something together or to learn from each other.
Right.
I think that's where it begins.
Thank you. Belle, is there anything? Is there a tool that you would like to share with people?
Yes, maybe quite similar to yours, but more like just asked if you feel like you don't understand the situation, you don't understand the person, but you have the wish to understand, then ask like honestly with your honesty. I think that's like just one of the way for us to be able to communicate. Then another person can understand that, okay, another person is willing to listen or to understand my world. Then the exchange can happen. So like the breaking point for me, maybe the questions,
Thanks. Emilio?
Open up, ask questions, and break down the boundaries together then.
Yeah, great. And one that I had to learn as well is understanding that your truth isn't really the ultimate truth. So challenging your own truth and being prepared to listen and to change your own perspective. That helped me a lot as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your stories and thank you for being here. We've come to the end of the program, but next week we will be back with the Equity and Design series and we will talk about intentional intersectionality with Lotte van Eyck, Sarah Nakvi, Ali T. Assad and Jackie Shaw. If you're a student or if you're a designer to be, please join our student book club and get a copy of Glitch Feminism, selected by our third Designing Cities for All fellow Galit Ariel. And the deadline to enter that is October 6th. If you go to deswijger.nl/DCFA, you can find more information. We've come to the end. If you would like to support our program, I hear the end tune as well, but that was a bit early. You can go to deswijger.nl/pay and there you can leave a donation that will benefit the programs directly. Again, thank you so much for being here at the table, sharing your stories online through Zoom as well, Annika. And we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.